in our talk, you did mention many times different books, but I would still like to know a couple of books which influenced you most.
Yep. So started with First Break All the Rules, which was kind of some fundamental things like teaching you that it's okay to get close to your employees. You need to have it's okay to be connected.
Right.
John Wooden has this that states you need to have a professional love for your employees. And there's a benefit that you get when you do that, because it becomes more like a family, where you really care about them, you really care about their career, you really care about their development, you really want them to get promoted, to get new opportunities, to get growth, because it could change their future family and their future generations.
Right.
Can go to better opportunities are made available that might not be available otherwise.
Right.
So I start with First Break All the Rules, and I would say John Wooden's leadership techniques is really, really good. I like Ray Dalio's, who's one of Bill Gates' favorite, which is sort of principles. It's a lot of tremendous guiding principles. One of them that comes to mind that I'll mention, because I love this one, is we normally think when we make a decision of first order effects. What are the obvious effects? The first order effect of not doing documentation would be, hey, it takes less time, I get the software out there. What are the secondary and tertiary order effects? What happens when you have turnover? What's your story when you have turnover? What happens when you have brain drain, where the people with those expertise leave and now you got software that's undocumented that nobody can figure out and have a clue of how it works? Right? So you've got to think beyond just the direct first order effects and dig a little deeper. Go to multiple levels of effects. I love a Brain Rules book, which is a good one about sort of understanding people's capacity and how they think, and they call it theory of mind, to try to understand how other people think, to be able to, we have our own framework of how we view the world. What if you could kind of get a feel for what other people value?
Right.
That would help you in having discussion, certainly help you in influencing.
True.
If you kind of understand what's important to each other person you're working with, you have a better chance. A book I saw mentioned on one of the sessions was, How to Win Friends and Influence Enemies, I think it was.
Yeah.
That's a classic. That's one that there's a lot of great joy. A recent one, The Obstacle is the Way, where you learn how to pivot your mindset, because we can get down when we face obstacle after obstacle. Brilliant book on pivoting obstacles into opportunities.
Wow.
And it changes the way you view the world. Any book that changes the way you fundamentally view the world is the ones to me that I like. I want to mention one other thing out of the Brain Rules book, which is really a good one, because remember talking about teaching and coaching. One of the statements the author makes, which I love, is what's obvious to you is obvious to you. Remember, we always use the term common sense.
Right.
Common to who?
Right.
It's common to you. That doesn't mean it's common to anybody else. Now, let's talk about where this is fatally flawed when it comes to the teacher-student relationship. If you look at the way that we teach, what happens if the teacher's teaching a room of, say, 5 folks, and one of the people is struggling? We blame the student.
Yeah.
Why? We blame the student. It's actually the teacher's fault. It's only when the teacher takes on the responsibility of teaching a student that wants to be taught. So let's be clear. You have a student that wants to be taught, and your mechanisms for teaching aren't working. Take ownership. Don't point the finger at that student. You point the finger right back at yourself. What is flawed in my teaching that's causing me to, this person wants to learn. They want to learn. They want to develop. They want to grow, and I'm not teaching them. So I would then look and say, what is it about my teaching that's causing it to fail? What's the fatal flaw in the way that I'm teaching? But notice how that's a role reversal. Think about colleges. They blame the students. I teach this way, you're supposed to learn this way. It's common sense.
Right.
No, that's nonsense. Each person, a lot of people learn in different ways.
Right.
And so the magic is when the teacher is able to find the proper way for each student. And sometimes you can do 80%, but you're never going to get 100% with one style. You're going to have to learn to be able to adapt your teaching style to the need of each student and where they're at in terms of their learning.
True.
And you want to build their fundamentals and their foundation.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
But isn't that weird that you change role reversal? So we always blame the student. Oh, that student is no good. No, I would say the same thing with a hire. When you think you've made a bad hire, take a look at yourself.
Yes.
And I'll give you another tip here. Are you ready for this? When you make a decision, make the best decision you can make on the evidence that you have at that moment in time.
Right.
Once you've made the decision, you're all in. So once you've made the decision, make the best of the decision you did make. So you make the best decision you can make with the data you have, and then once you've done that, you make the best of the decision you did make. You don't look back.
Yeah.
Because what happens is people are self-fulfilling. You see self-fulfilling prophecy all over the place. They don't agree with the decision. So they don't really disagree and commit. They really are trying to undermine it. So in fact, they can prove their point that it was fatally flawed, rather than going with something they disagree with and say, once I'm in, I'm all in. So this is the path we're going. I'm going to do everything within my power and the rest of my team's power to find a way to make it successful. If it ultimately fails, maybe it was the wrong decision, but it's not because I didn't go in 100% to try to make it successful. And that's a very hard ego pivot to make, that you have a strong argument for the way you want it to go, to adopt somebody else's very different decision, and then to put 100% of your energy behind it and everything you think of to make it successful. And what you'll find is you make very few bad decisions, because usually they're not mutually exclusive. There's usually a way to make almost any decision very successful.
True.
And so that's really a takeaway. That's only the last couple of years I've made that pivot.
No, that's very, very good advice. Yeah, thank you very much. So, Mike, it was absolute pleasure of mine to
got one more.
speak to you. Yeah, go ahead.
You got one more. I remember it on your sheet, which was, what do we tell new